Every night you lose consciousness, enter a state your brain generates entirely from within, and experience a reality so convincing your nervous system can't distinguish it from waking life. Your heart rate changes. Stress hormones release. The motor cortex fires movement, commands your body physically executes, suppressed only by a paralysis mechanism that occasionally fails. For most of recorded history, that process was considered neurological housekeeping, memory consolidation, emotional processing, random neural noise dressed up as narrative. In 2024, a Silicon Valley neurotechnology company called REMspace achieved something that shattered that framework entirely. Two people, sleeping in separate locations, exchanged verifiable information through a shared lucid dream state in real time. Not metaphorically, not through coincidence, through a documented experimental protocol involving EEG monitoring, targeted neural stimulation, and confirmed signal transmission, peer-reviewed, replicated across 36 participants in multiple laboratory settings. Simultaneously, quantum consciousness researchers published evidence that the brain operates through quantum entanglement mechanisms, the same non-local physics that Einstein called spooky action at a distance. And a new wave of theoretical physics, building on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, now formally proposes that dreaming consciousness may be accessing branching probability states, alternate versions of reality that quantum mechanics requires to exist. The question isn't whether your dreams feel real. The question is whether they are. The difficulty begins with what brain imaging revealed about dreaming. During REM sleep, the visual cortex activates at levels indistinguishable from waking perception. The motor cortex fires movement sequences suppressed from physical execution by glycine release in the brainstem, a paralysis mechanism that evolved specifically because the brain was generating motor commands too convincing to leave unblocked. The prefrontal cortex, the region governing critical analysis, self-awareness, and reality testing, partially deactivates, which is precisely why dream logic feels coherent while you're inside it. The mechanism that would flag inconsistencies goes offline. What remains fully active? The amygdala, the hippocampus, the sensory processing regions. The emotional and perceptual architecture of the brain operates at full capacity. Fear responses in dreams produce the same cortisol and adrenaline signatures as genuine threat encounters. Grief experienced in sleep triggers measurable physiological distress. The brain doesn't treat dreaming as simulation. Its autonomic systems respond as though the events are occurring. Lucid dreaming research, where subjects maintain conscious awareness while remaining asleep, added a further complication. A 2025 study published in Neuroscience literature identified lucid dreaming as a genuinely distinct third state of consciousness, not sleep, not wakefulness, but a hybrid condition with its own characteristic brainwave signature. Elevated beta activity in the prefrontal regions alongside the theta waves typical of REM. The brain, under specific conditions, can be simultaneously inside a dream and aware that it's dreaming. Two modes of consciousness running in parallel. That observation is what made the REMspace experiment possible. REMspace's 2024 protocol was straightforward in design and extraordinary in implication. Two participants, sleeping separately, were monitored via EEG. When both entered verified lucid dream states, confirmed by the characteristic beta-theta brainwave signature, the system delivered a pre-agreed audio cue to each simultaneously. Both participants, consciously aware within their respective dreams, received the signal and were instructed to transmit a response. The responses matched. A 2025 expanded study involving 36 participants across multiple laboratory locations confirmed the result: real-time interactive dreaming between sleeping individuals. Information exchanged. Transmission verified. The study described it as the first confirmed demonstration of inter-subject dream communication in sleep research history. The mechanism REMspace exploited, targeted auditory stimulation during verified lucid states, doesn't explain what actually occurred. It explains how the signal was delivered. What it doesn't account for is the specific content alignment between participants who had no waking communication channel and whose dream environments were generated independently. The mainstream neuroscience response: cautious. The methodology is being scrutinized. Independent replication is ongoing. What nobody is disputing is that two sleeping people exchanged verifiable information. Quantum researchers found the brain operates through entanglement. A new theoretical framework suggests dreams access branching realities quantum mechanics requires to exist. Subscribe. Things that shouldn't exist follows the evidence wherever it leads. The quantum consciousness framework didn't begin with dreams. Physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed in the 1990s that consciousness arises from quantum computations occurring inside microtubules, protein structures within neurons. Their orchestrated objective reduction theory, ORC-OR, argued that the brain performs quantum operations at a scale sufficient to produce conscious experience, and that classical neuroscience's purely electrochemical model was missing a fundamental layer. Mainstream neuroscience resisted the framework for decades. Too speculative. Neurons are too warm and wet for quantum coherence to survive. A 2025 study published in peer-reviewed literature changed the calculus. Researchers documented evidence that quantum entanglement measurably enhances conscious processing. Subjects in experimentally induced quantum entangled states demonstrated faster, more efficient learning and altered conscious experience relative to controls. The paper concluded that quantum entanglement facilitates higher states of consciousness in ways the classical model cannot account for. Google's 2024 Willow quantum chip added a different angle. The chip solved a computational problem that would require a classical computer longer than the age of the universe to complete. Google's own physicists noted the result's implications for the many worlds interpretation. The possibility that quantum computation works precisely because it accesses parallel probability branches simultaneously. David Deutsch, one of the architects of quantum computing theory, has argued for decades that quantum computation's effectiveness is direct evidence for the many worlds framework, that every quantum calculation runs across multiple branching realities in superposition. If the brain performs quantum computation, which the 2025 entanglement research suggests, and quantum computation accesses branching probability states, which Google's Willow result implies, then a sleeping brain operating in a quantum coherent state may not be generating fiction. It may be sampling real branches. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics isn't fringe physics. Proposed by Hugh Everett III in 1957 and formalized through decades of subsequent theoretical development, it holds that the quantum wave function never collapses. Every probabilistic outcome branches into a real, physical version of reality. The universe doesn't choose between possibilities. All of them occur, splitting into parallel branches at every quantum event. The implication is precise. Every decision you didn't make, every path you didn't take, every version of your life that quantum probability permitted exists, not as metaphor, as actual physical reality in a branching structure that mainstream quantum mechanics mathematically requires. Dr. David Leong, honorary professor at Charisma University, published analysis in 2024 arguing that dreaming consciousness, operating in a partially deactivated prefrontal state with elevated quantum coherence in underlying neural structures, may be less filtered than waking perception, more permeable to signals from adjacent probability branches. The specific phenomenology of dreams supports this structurally. The appearance of people you've never met who feel intimately familiar. Locations that don't exist in waking geography but carry precise sensory detail. Events that haven't occurred but produce the physiological response of genuine memory. The recurring dream content that doesn't map onto personal experience. In a branching universe, none of that requires an extraordinary explanation. It requires a permeable receiver. REMspace documented real-time information exchange between sleeping subjects in 2024, confirmed across 36 participants in a 2025 multi-lab study. The brain's autonomic systems treat dream events as genuine occurrences. Cortisol, adrenaline, motor commands, full perceptual activation. Quantum entanglement demonstrably enhances conscious processing. Google's Willow chip produces results that Deutsch and others argue are only explicable if quantum computation accesses parallel probability branches. The many worlds framework, mainstream physics, not fringe speculation, mathematically requires those branches to exist. The weakest link in the chain connecting dreaming to parallel reality isn't the physics. It's the assumption that the brain is too simple to exploit quantum mechanics, an assumption the 2025 entanglement research directly challenged. What neuroscience built its dream model on was a brain too warm and biological for quantum coherence. What the evidence is now producing is a brain that demonstrably uses quantum processes, exchanges information across sleeping subjects, and operates in a state that the many worlds framework would predict is maximally permeable to branching reality. The question mainstream science won't formally ask yet. If two sleeping people can exchange verified information through a dream state using mechanisms nobody fully understands, what exactly are they accessing? Drop a comment. Does the REMspace result shift your read on this? Or does quantum consciousness still feel like a stretch? Because the 2025 entanglement paper is the piece that closes the gap for me. Next week on Things That Shouldn't Exist. The Voynich Manuscript. A 15th century illustrated book in an undeciphered language. A 2026 computational analysis just identified grammatical structures that make the hoax hypothesis mathematically untenable. Here's what the data actually shows. Subscribe. I'll see you there.